Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So Ekow Essuman puts the fork in Josh Taylor's career. He's done. Ekow Essuman wins by a 12-round unanimous decision. In my opinion, the right result. In my opinion, he outworked Josh Taylor, especially in the second half of this fight. Maintained his shape throughout. Whereas for me, Taylor for me looked very ragged in much of this fight. Didn't hold his shape. And he just doesn't have it anymore. I think it's plain to see. Not to take anything away from Ekow Essuman, this is the opinion I've had about Josh Taylor now for a while, like 2-3 years at this point. I felt it was evident in the first Catterall fight this guy is on the slide. And even in the fight where he won against Ramirez, he was electric for the first sort of 6 rounds or so, 6-7 rounds. But if you go back and watch that fight, he couldn't sustain it for 12. Ramirez came back into it and won the last few rounds of that fight. And Taylor was hanging on. People forget that. Yes, he won the fight, but he wasn't impressive after the 7th round onwards. You know, Josh Taylor in his prime was always a ball of energy. He would have moments where he would be having tough spells in fights, like the Prograis fight, but he would come on late and have great rounds and really force the issue, despite being in really hard fights. We saw that with Baranchik, we saw that with Prograis, we saw that with Postal, but you know, that hasn't been there for a long time with Josh Taylor, and this fight really exposed that. Ekow Essuman is a consummate professional. He's a well-rounded fighter who's been at domestic level his entire career, and he's been a good domestic fighter, but that's what he's been. Whereas, of course, Taylor in his prime was a world-level fighter, but like I said, he just doesn't have that anymore. First 2 rounds of this fight, Taylor came out and tried to rewind the clock almost. He came out very frenetic, very aggressive, feinting with his lead hand, throwing that right hook to body and head, firing that straight left hand to body, also head as well. First 2 rounds, it looked like that Taylor maybe was going to overwhelm Ekow Essuman. Taylor bossed the first couple of rounds, but Essuman was keeping covered up, you know. He got through that tough spell, that quick start by Taylor. But to be fair to him, he also landed a couple of good overhand rights in the first couple of rounds, where Taylor switched off, and that overhand right would become more frequent throughout this bout. After the second round, rounds 3, 4 and 5 were very competitive. Both guys had their moments. Taylor was really kind of trying to force his work, trying to land that straight left of a body, trying to land that right hook around the side of Essuman's guard. And he was landing shots in rounds 3, 4 and 5. However, one thing I noticed was I felt Taylor's work looked incredibly forced. Like, he was forcing everything. There was no real thought behind it. Whereas Essuman was covering up. He was exchanging. When he exchanged with Taylor, I felt he got the better of it. The overhand right from Essuman was starting to become more frequent in rounds 3, 4 and 5. And I actually felt he landed the cleaner shots in those rounds. Maybe there was a round or 2 there where Taylor outworked him. And I think you could argue that Taylor maybe was up after the 5th round. But, you know, there were just moments where, to me, in those rounds, Taylor was starting to lose his shape, whereas Essuman wasn't. It looked like, despite Taylor was competing with Essuman, the fight was drifting away from him in the sense that it was turning into a fight that was going to favour Essuman in the second half. By the way, in round 4, both guys landed some really good shots, actually. Taylor landed an overhand left that forced Essuman back, kind of made him backpedal, lost his balance a little bit, but regained composure. And Taylor tried to force the issue after that and got caught with a big right hand towards the end of a round. So, you know, that's an example of what these rounds were like. But after round 5, I gave Ekow Essuman every round. I gave him every round. I felt he was thoroughly outworking Taylor. I felt in the exchanges, Essuman was keeping his punches more short, more compact. He was landing with the knuckles, whereas for me, Taylor was landing cuffing work. The punch technique wasn't there from Taylor. The shape wasn't there. He was losing his balance. There was a cut caused in the mid-rounds, I believe, by a head clash. didn't look deliberate or anything like that, but round 6 onwards, man, Essuman was just picking his spots really well. I felt he was defending himself very well also with that high guard, staying nice and compact, taking his head off centre line. And really, Taylor was just forcing everything he was doing. It was telegraphed, it was obvious, whereas what Essuman was doing was coming a lot more freely. Just working the body, chipping away, throwing the overhand right over Taylor's low lead hand. And, yeah, man, Essuman was just picking his spots better. He was outworking Taylor for me in the second half of this fight. Was thoroughly outworking him, in my opinion. I actually felt the judges got this fight pretty much spot on. I think 2 judges had it 116-112 and 1 had it 115-113. I think 115-113 is being as generous as possible to Taylor. Maybe it's plausible, but no more than that. I don't know why Taylor, by the way, at the end of this fight was kind of like shaking his head like he won it. I'm really, really not sure what that was about, quite frankly. Really not sure. He was thoroughly outworked in the second half of this fight. He was buzzed a couple of times momentarily. Not badly hurt or anything like that, but you could tell he felt the shots. He was engaging, I would say, 80% of the clinches throughout this fight. He was the one who was forced into a fight that, in my opinion, he didn't want to fight. I felt he went in there, he tried to blast out Essuman, had a good start, and then he was spent very quickly. He just doesn't have it anymore. He can't sustain that sort of style over 12 rounds like he used to. He's had a lot of hard fights. He hasn't lived his life outside the ring, allegedly. And I think it's all coming home to roost now. Josh Taylor is done. Like I've suspected for a long time now, for many years. And yeah, that's it for him, in my opinion. That's it. There's no coming back from this. Credit to Ekow Essuman, 36 years old. He's shown that, if you stay with it, if you stay professional, then your time can come. And he's going to get a decent fight off the back of this. So, fair play to Essuman. He fought a good fight, in my opinion. He fought a really good fight. And by the way, the fight itself was actually quite good. It was actually quite a good fight. It wasn't a bad fight at all. I actually quite enjoyed it. Both guys were trying their best. They were trying their best with what they had, comparatively. But for me, Essuman was just a step ahead. I felt he deserved the win here. But anyway, how do you guys see this fight? Do you guys see it the same as me? You just saw a fighter in Taylor who just doesn't have it anymore, and Essuman was able to take advantage of that with his professionalism and his consistency. I feel that's how it was, personally. I'm not trying to take credit away from Essuman. Again, I've got a lot of respect for Essuman. He's been around the domestic scene for many years, toiling away in hard fights. And yeah, this is his moment in the sun, so hopefully he enjoys it. And yeah, we'll see him in a big fight next, whoever that's against. Listen, if Conor Benn wants to get his ass back down to welterweight, why not Conor Benn versus Ekow Essuman? I think that would be a great fight. Conor Benn versus Ekow Essuman. I think the Eubank Jr. fight was a one fight thing. I don't think that should happen again. Conor Benn, in my opinion, should go back down to 147. I think Essuman versus Conor Benn would be a really good fight, actually. I think that would be a really good fight. Josh Taylor needs to retire. Simple as that. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.